Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 1 to 4 player game, Noctiluca, designed by Shem Phillips and published by Z-Man Games, who helped sponsor this video. At the bottom of a lake, deep in the jungle, the most skilled divers seek to collect the glowing Noctiluca, beautiful aquatic creatures known for their healing abilities. But each diver will want to ensure that they gather the best collection. So, join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. To set up, place the game board in the middle of the table, with the numbered side face down, which is only used if you're playing solo. The black die is also for solo play, so you can return it to the box, but the rest of the dice represent the colored Noctiluca creatures, which you'll randomly position in groups of 5 in the outer ring of the board, and in groups of 4 in the inner ring. It will look something like this when you're done, and any extra dice you can just set in a discard pile beside the board. These are the point tokens, and you'll sort them by color, stacking them in numbered order with the highest value on the bottom and the lowest one on top, and these you'll place nearby. Now distribute the 12 pawns evenly among the players. In this video I'm setting up a 2-player game, and that means each person gets 6 pawns. These are the favorite cards, which all have reminders of how scoring works at the end of the game, but on the other side, they show a unique Noctiluca. You will shuffle and then deal one of these randomly to each player. And each player should privately examine the Noctiluca on the back, but should keep that a secret from the other players. Any undealt cards should then be returned unseen to the box. Now take these jar cards, shuffle them, and deal 3 face down to each player, who will secretly pick 2 of them to keep, putting those face down again and setting the other one aside. Once everyone is ready, those chosen cards are revealed, and the set aside ones are shuffled back into the main deck. These are then dealt face up as evenly as possible into 4 piles by the board. The youngest player then takes this first player token, putting it with the one side face up. And that's the setup. In Noctiluca, players will be trying to fill their jars with the brightly colored sea creatures, and these will provide you with a variety of ways to score points, as we'll see. The game is played over a series of turns, starting with the first player, and then going clockwise around and around the table. On your turn, you'll place one of your pawns onto any one unoccupied shore space along the outside edge of the pool. You'll then choose one of the 2 straight paths adjacent to that shore and announce a number between 1 and 6. So let's say I placed a pawn here, chose this line, and said 6. I would then collect all of the dice along that path, showing the number that I announced, and I would just place them in front of myself. The dice you took are then placed into any combination of your jars on the matching colored spaces. The numbers don't matter, just the colors. And once a die is placed, you cannot move it. So this purple die could go into either these 2 spaces or these 3. But I'm going to try to fill up this jar first, so I'll place it here. This one will go here, and also this one. If there are not enough available matching spaces for all the dice that you collected, then any remaining are passed to the next player in turn order. They can then pick one of those dice to put into their jar, passing the rest to the next player. So if we had a 3rd player, they would then get these, and they could pick one of them to keep. In this case, we only have 2 players. We know this player has placed all the dice that they can, and that means these dice will go back to this player, because basically these will get passed back and forth between the remaining players, each of them taking 1 die until all of the dice that can be placed have been placed. And then any leftovers are just discarded. With the dice distributed, the current player now delivers any jars in front of them that are full, one at a time, by discarding the dice from them and then taking the top token from the stack that matches the color of the pictured jar stopper on the jar they just completed. So in this case, they draw the top token from here. You'll then keep that token and the jar in front of you, but the completed jar is flipped face down. Then the player picks any one of the top face-up jars from these piles to put in front of them, replacing the jar that they completed. And if any other players had also completed jars at this time from dice that were passed to them, then in turn order, they complete the same steps to deliver those jars. And with that, the current player's turn is finished. Turns will continue like this, with players placing pawns, collecting Noctiluca, completing their jars, and so on, until the final pawn has been placed. And at that time, the round ends. Now, all of the pawns are removed from the board and divided evenly among the players again. All remaining Noctiluca dice are also removed from the board, and then the dice are randomly distributed over all the spaces again, just as we did during the initial setup. Now flip the first player marker to the 2 side and pass it to the player who placed the last pawn in the first round. They are now the new first player, and the game will continue with turns being taken in counterclockwise order as shown by the arrows here. After all the pawns have been placed in the second round, the game ends and the players will calculate their final scores. First, pick one of the token colors and have each player count up how many of them that they have. Again, you're counting how many, not their total value. So player 1 has 4 of them and player 2 has 3. The player who has the majority will flip the remaining unclaimed tokens of that color face down and collect them, with each one being worth 1 point. Now, if there's a tie between players, then you'll split these remaining tokens as evenly as possible among the tied players, discarding any extras. You then do the same steps for the other 2 colors of tokens, with players comparing how many of each of those colors they have. Now players will add together all of the points showing on the tokens that they have, and then they'll flip face up all of the jars they completed and add any bonus points showing in the top right-hand corners. They'll also flip over their favorite card that was dealt during the setup and score 1 point for every matching colored space on their delivered jars. So they do not check the jars that they still had face up in front of them when the game ended. But from those 2 jars, they'll score 1 point for every 2 dice there. The players compare their final scores, and the one with the most points wins. If there's a tie, the tied player who delivered the most jars wins. And if there's still a tie, the tied players share the victory. There are also rules for solo play found here on the back of the rulebook, but I'll leave those for you to discover on your own. Otherwise, that's how you play Noctiluca. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notifications anytime we post a new video. But until next time, thanks for watching.